afternoon, everyone. My brother and I would like to take a moment to officially welcome you all here today to celebrate the wedding of our mum and Chris. Where is Chris? There's Chris. He's gone. He's still a runner. But also to say some words about our truly wonderful mum and possibly tell a story or two.
I think we can all agree that our mum looks absolutely beautiful today. To us, she's always been someone who lights up the room with her laugh, her terrible, terrible jokes, her smile and genuinely positive outlook on life. But today, with Chris by her side, everyone else pales in comparison. Mum, you do look amazing. Marrying Chris clearly looks good on you. Now, we wouldn't be doing our job correctly if we didn't share some insight into our childhood and life with our dear mum.
Yay. Right, so growing up, Rob and I were incredibly lucky to have two very wonderful parents. Our home was always full of silliness, laughter, and let's not forget that Christmas magic. We're going to talk more about Christmas later. Our parents were terrific role models, and now that we both have tiny humans of our own, it makes it easy for us to emulate what they taught us. But let's enlighten you on some of those moments of our childhood.
From very early on, our mother was a prankster. Not a very good one. For many, many, many years, she tried to convince us that she was over 300 years old. Why? No idea. But it was a prank that presented in our childhood for many, many years. I mean, at least into our late teens. When we learned the Queen would send letters to people who reached over 100, we smugly asked to see the 3 letters. Without skipping a beat, she informed us that they were kept in Dad's safe at work. She's cunning, we'll give her that. So Chris, as we never managed to break into that safe, you may think you've married a sprightly 65-year-old, but how can you really be sure? She may just get bloody good for her age.
Now, I'm going to tell you a tale that followed me all the way to university. Something I have yet to live down with my university friend. He knows what's coming. So I was sitting in my first year flat with my flatmates. We were watching TV, we were eating very badly cooked food, we were chatting rubbish, as you do. And we touched upon these childhood movies that, the ones that traumatised you as a child. Old Yeller was discussed. If you've seen Old Yeller, that's pretty traumatic. The dog dies, by the way. Watership Down was another one. And then one of my flatmates brought up E.T. Now, I jumped on this bandwagon straight away because, I thought the ending was absolutely dreadful of this movie. It was traumatic. It was definitely traumatising. And I sat there and I said, E.T. got killed by a badger and he ate him. And, to me, I was thinking, well, how's that child appropriate? It's pretty awful. And as it turns out, E.T. isn't killed by a badger or eaten. E.T. actually goes home. But not in the version I watched. So I raised this with my mum, and she went very quiet. And then she admitted that she'd actually stopped the film before the ending because it was getting a bit late and she wanted me to go to bed. So she told me how it ended, which was with a badger eating E.T. Now, I would love to be able to tell you why it went so dark, but I honestly don't think either of us really know.
Now, it might come as a bit of surprise to you all, but Mum and Chris are partial to a round of golf. Mum passed her passion on to me. However, due to work and family life, as I'm sure most of you have seen today, I don't get a chance as much as I'd like. So it's great to know she has a partner for life in Chris. I'd actually like to take credit for Mum's golf. If it wasn't for me putting her into all the terrible positions of the golf course, she would be nowhere near as good as she is today. Finally, a warning, Chris. Don't ever let Mum down by accepting being best man at your best mate's wedding and missing a so-called competition called the Gems Trophy, because you'll quickly be replaced. They will do far better by winning it. And then the next year, I get replaced by a certain Alex Gems over in the corner over there. So just, yeah, be very careful there.
So for us, holidays were never better than when we went to Vilamoura in Portugal with our family friends. We visited at least twice a year and spent our time enjoying the golf courses. I didn't, but they did. The hotel pool and some local restaurants. It was in one of these restaurants, Caesar's, that we still visit when we're out there, that Mum saw her opportunity to demonstrate her magic tricks. Well, she spent ages, and I mean ages, setting up this trick. Painstaking to watch, I'll be honest. She was building suspense, and she got to the end, and it all came crashing down when she went, "Is this your card?" "Oh." And then looked at it and went, "No, that's not your card." And then we never really know whose card it was, to be honest with you. But I mean, I'll be honest, sometimes your jokes go the same way as well.
We also couldn't really get away with talking about Mum without bringing up her infamous Chris Gems patterned Pippisms. For those of you who don't know, these are sayings that either Mum has got hilariously wrong or an unintended innuendo. An example, when we were young, our dad was given an electric screwdriver for Chris. Our mum's response... Christmas, sorry. Our mum's response, "Well, that'll take all the effort out screwing it, won't it, Ron?"
I'm really hoping you don't get that.
He's been listening.
Okay, so now, back to Christmas that we mentioned earlier. Can I have my hand back, please? When we first met Chris, we weren't entirely sure we knew what he was letting himself in for with regards to Christmas at Pip's house. I mean, it's an absolute event. I'm sure anyone who's been to Mum's house can testify to this. There's a decoration for every nook, every cranny, and we aren't even exaggerating. Every year, getting the Christmas decorations down from the loft was a family weekend event. It took us 2 days, 2 whole days, just to get them down. So box after box after box after box would come down from the loft. There were angels, Christmas, Winnie the Poohs, tinsel, garlands. It's really annoying. Father Christmas, every time he walked remotely close to it, would start rocking and singing very loudly. It was literally a conveyor belt of Christmas delight. And actually, as much as we like to laugh about the fact it looks like Father Christmas has exploded in our house, it really did make Christmas magical at our house. Mum is never more in her element than when she is surrounded by Christmas. And now, Chris, we surrender getting the decoration out of the loft to you. Good luck, we've been there, done that.
Apart from my speaking done.
Sorry.
Now, we couldn't stand here and talk about our incredible mum without talking about our incredible dad. The two of them as parents created a childhood that we both look back on fondly. Neither of us think that our childhood would be any better than it was. Mum and Dad were a couple who complemented each other. They were able to show us what it was like to be in a partnership, to be a husband and wife, and to be parents. We'd like to take a moment to remember our dad and how happy our memories of growing up in the family were. He was a great man, warm, intelligent, funny. We miss him every day. He loved our mum very, very much. And whilst we're incredibly sad that he's no longer here today with us, we know that he'll be very happy to know that she continues to be loved and honoured in the same way as she deserves by Chris.
I didn't even have to say anything. We know we've told you some silly and funny stories about our mum, but really what we truly want to say is how proud we are of her. In the last few years, she's demonstrated unfathomable strength and immeasurable resilience, whilst continuing to be the most incredible mother, grandmother, sister and friend. Meeting Chris and finding happiness again, God, is nothing less than she deserves, and we are so happy to be here to celebrate this new, exciting and simply perfect chapter in her life.
So we'd like to draw like to begin to draw our speech to a close by officially welcoming you, Chris, to the family. You are a truly wonderful man who's adapted so well to a chaos of 4 grandchildren. And honestly, we couldn't be happier you're joining us. You made our mum very happy, and we know the two of you will continue to make each other smile for many, 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 many years to come.
And finally, to our mum. I told you I was emotional, Rob. We want you to know how much we really, really love you. You're simply incredible, and we really are so happy for you both. So if you could please stand. We can share. And raise
a glass.
To Pip and Chris.
Pip and Chris. Well done.
Wow, how to follow that? That was very emotional, wasn't it? Thank you. Anyway, it's lovely to see you all here. Thank you very much for coming. Really nice to have so many friends and families from both sides. New friends, new families. And I'd like to welcome you here on behalf of my wife and I. It's all a bit different the second time round, I suppose. Yes, I'm really glad, thank you, Sarah and Rob, for mentioning your dad. And it's very nice that we've been able to remember him and also remember Anne in the same way. And I hope very much, I'm sure, that they're both wishing us well, and looking down on us now and seeing us happy together going forwards from here. So this event has been, I hope, age appropriate. A little bit different from the first times that we got married. And the main idea is, after meal, when you've all been sitting in your groups, that there won't be any raves or dancing or anything else. We're just going to go into the other room. There's a bar there, which might be useful. And I hope that you'll each mingle and start to meet people from the other sides of the friends and the families, and we'll end up with one bigger, larger, friendly group together. It's usually the best man's role to talk about this, but the stag night was also age appropriate. A little bit older, a little bit different. Not flying off to Croatia or America and spending a week away or something. We thought we'd go somewhere more exotic. So we went, Clive and Lance, we went to Blackpool. Something we've been doing for 35 years. We've been going somewhere or other for roller coasting every year for 35 years. And I thought it'd be quite nice to commemorate this, and so I actually commissioned a photograph to be taken. And does this work? There's always someone, isn't there?
Just get very excited.
Unlike Clive. So anyway, I think some of you know the story about how Pip and I came to meet. We were both very nervous of the online dating, but the first lockdown, I think, taught us that perhaps now was the time to do this. We think fate, or Anne and Ron, took a hand in this because we were both on 2 completely different websites. And we both said we didn't want to meet anyone more than 50 miles away, and yet they still managed to link us up. Golf, I think, was probably the one thing that came through from all of those websites, that we were probably the only 2 golfers on it, I imagine. At the time, Pip had a lower handicap than me. I was very coy about mine. I was very clear about mine, but she was very, very coy about hers, only later on finding it was lower than mine. We didn't really go to a very good start because the first 2 things I suggested I was refused. First off, I said, well, let's have a game of golf. No. So I said, the next thing I said, well, let's meet at your golf course then. No. So we agreed to meet on Wimbledon Common. Much, I think, to the worry of Sarah and Rob, who I think thought I was an axe murderer. So anyway, we were both very honest in our online profiles, which I think is extremely important, because if you're looking for a long-term relationship, then for anyone else who's thinking of doing this, then you've got to be honest at the outset. I was very pleased that Pip said that she enjoyed cooking, and I was honest about mine, because I said I was improving to basic. And as a result of the fact, my friends, of course, teased me I was going to meet this mad woman on Wimbledon Common. But hearing she was a good cook, they naturally named her Madame Cholet. And so I have a small presentation to give to Pip in commemoration of this. And who's got the presentation? Have a look. So, I can almost tear this one up because this one's about Christmas. But no, it's very important. And in fact, part of it was Disney as well. And I think just as you love Christmas, you also love Disney. And took the children to Disney on several occasions. And if you've been to Pip's house, you'll have seen a Mickey Mouse clock. You'll have seen Mickey Mouse plates. You'll have seen a Mickey Mouse pepper grinder. Photos of Mickey Mouse, along with Sean Connery in one place. She marks her golf balls with Mickey Mouse, with his ears. So again, as a small commemoration, it must be my other niece who's got this one. So Rob and Sarah anyway have talked about Christmas and how also Winnie the Pooh appears on a lot of occasions as well. And Winnie the Pooh, of course, is now Disney, and they have made cuddly toys out of that. I must have had a slightly more deprived childhood. I did have a cuddly toy as a child. There was a monkey called Joseph, and Joseph didn't last very long, because at one point I had my fingernails and toenails cut, and so I thought, well, Joseph should have her fingernails and toenails cut too, and he rather sort of deflated after that. So I was given a second monkey called Charlie, and it's slightly appropriate because it turns out that under the Chinese horoscopes, if you know anything about these, and I used to travel to China quite a lot when times I used to work, and Pip and I are both monkeys. And this was actually part of the one joke I made in my last wedding speech, which was at the time, again under this Chinese horoscope, my mother-in-law was actually a dragon. Which was on. But coming back to the Winnie the Poohs, I thought it would actually help you to actually see what Rob and Sarah have described. It's not just one or two. The whole house is filled with it. So yes, and yes, I did spend 2 whole days getting them all down from the loft, and another 2 whole days putting them back up again. But anyway, also A.A. Milne has written books, and I think this one has been produced after his lifetime. It's called The Adventure Begins, Lessons in Love and Life. And my eldest step-grandson is going to make a presentation to you.
The whole house is full of teddies.
He's been there, he knows. So, golf is what really brought us together, though. Having met, having not murdered on Wimbledon Common, having finally been allowed to meet and play golf and join her club, and she's joined my club. We did play, and on the first meeting at Malden, I won. And the second meeting at Kenilworth, she won, closing out with a birdie on the 18th. So romance has blossomed. It's blossomed very quickly. It's been helped by lockdown. We spent 5 months together after that first lockdown. So we are like an old married couple already, despite the fact that we've still got 8 days to go to our first anniversary. So anyway, Pip, as apart from the many virtues which Rob and Sarah have extolled, does have a very generous nature. And I particularly want to thank her for having organised this wedding so well, so beautifully. And as a final serious memento now, ignoring the fun ones, which I hope I won't have to put up in the loft for you, I do have a proper presentation, hopefully to commemorate not just today but the rest of our lives, golf related, and
Snooker cue.
yes. Which way around is it?
Goodness. Oh, a golden putter. St Andrew's links.
Okay.
A golden putter.
That's how many yards you can hit it.
No, definitely not. Right, well, I look forward to trying that.
You know how heartbreaking a tree putt will be with that.
That's lovely.
Mum does a free putt.
You and I do, Robin. We putt first, and then she putt second, and we. So, the purpose of my speech, anyway, is to toast the bridesmaids. So, Sarah, yes, you've been a terrific help to your mum. You really have. I mean, not just in getting everything organised, but in being a big emotional support to her at a very difficult time. And we are extremely, extremely grateful to you. So, I do have a small present for you here. There we go. Well done. No problem. And also, some of you may have heard of this as we go in the garden. I actually have 3 of my original bridesmaids here as well. So that's Kate, Melanie, and Mandy. So I also have something small for you as well. But we have, just before you come up, I did ask them before the wedding that if they could wear their dresses from the original. And the sad thing is they've put on a huge amount of weight. Oh, wait a minute, that wasn't meant to be there. There we are. Sorry. I'll come back to that one. They've put on a huge amount of weight since last time. So if you'd like to come up, I have a small present for you too. Well done. Well done, thanks for coming. Right, so some of those photos got a bit out of order, sadly. Yes, so that should be the end of my speech, and I should therefore be about to hand over to Bruce, my best man, my first cousin. But I do have a concern, and I want to share this with you before I hand it over. Because Bruce and I got married very much the same time. In fact, he celebrated his 30th wedding anniversary to the lovely Sophie yesterday, 30 years yesterday. and we got married 3 months after that. And I was his best man, and he was my best man. And we had a pact that we wouldn't be nasty to each other. Now this time, of course, there's no reciprocation. So I'm going to have to bribe him. And some of you may know that the reason we've been such good friends over all that time, apart from being first cousins, he's been a very solid, good and loyal friend during all that time. And it's been helped by the fact that we do share a car. We have a fun car, and we started off with a Lotus 7 lookalike years ago called Lady Scarlet. And that sadly had to go when we both got married. But we since have got Olive. Lady Scarlet wasn't much of a crowd puller. And Olive is slightly better at that. And it always used to be, the older ones amongst us will remember the Earl's Court car show every year, where each of the manufacturers would compete against bringing out their new brands, and they would go with the topless models. And I've rather spoilt this. How do I go backwards? So that's the topless model in Olive the Lotus. So
She's going home before she can recreate that.
So my final bribe to Bruce as well is a small present to him, which his lovely wife has. A replica of Olive. Is that my glass right? I think that's it. So, the whole point of my speech, a toast to the bridesmaids. Sarah.
Hello, can you hear me? Right. Hello, family and friends. Isn't it lovely to be here together and mix? It's great. Well, thank you for making our day today. And it's the perfect end of a fairy tale day to get married to this lovely man, Chris. And I love you dearly. And how lucky we are to find each other. It's been a magical year, but obviously we are a positive out of the COVID situation. Because otherwise, if we hadn't been in a lockdown, we would probably be merrily looking for each other still today. Obviously, the last second and third lockdown, between November to December and then December to March, it was a situation where it was a make or break situation for us. We were either going to come out of it brilliantly or we're not. But as Chris has been so patient and understanding, and we've just got on so well, you know, we've made it to today, and I'm sure the rest of our lives will be like this. I'd like to thank Chris's family. Sister, there we are. Right, okay. Thank you for making me feel so welcome. And it's so nice to meet John in a situation with all the friends and everything. And again, thank you for making me so welcome. Family has always meant a great deal to me, and I obviously have a growing family with 2 grandchildren in the last 4 months. Chris and I, although we have separate homes, we are still going to commute our distance most weekends, or alternate weekends, or whatever functions we get invited to, or holidays we get invited to. So we will still be permanently together, but there will be the odd time when we're in each other's homes. Or not in each other's homes, should I say. Chris, you have taken to meeting my 4 grandchildren beautifully, and you are an an honorary granddad. But we have all agreed that you are happier being called Chris. You've mentioned Ron and Anne, and I think the reason being, we both have had such successful first marriages that they have helped us be the people that we are today. A loving couple, not afraid of commitment to each other. I feel at times that fate has taken a big hand in our relationship, and I really think that sometimes it's Anne and Ron up there looking down on us and saying, we'll fix these two people. And God bless them, they've done a really good job. They will always be in our hearts and minds, and they are very much part of us here today. We've got pictures of Anne coming up, I think, and I put a few pictures out the front so that some of you who don't know Ron can see Ron as a family man. It's lovely. Pembroke Lodge and Richmond have always played a big part in our family life here in Kingston, Surbiton, or wherever we've lived over the years. Ron loved walking around here and watching the planes. Being an ex-pilot, he would watch the planes from, which is here, the highest part of the park. And Richmond Pembroke Lodge is the only royal park that has a licence to have marriages. So I think we're very, very lucky to live so near and be part of it. It's the biggest park, obviously, in London. Do please, if you get a chance afterwards, later, to explore the lovely gardens. You will find that there is a particular mention of Henry's Mound. For those who are not local, Henry's Mound is after Henry VIII, because this park was originally set up for him, for his hunting deer and shooting and whatever he did in those days. But there is a particular vista on Henry's Mound for those who are interested to see, where you can just walk up to the mound. There is a telescopic view as well, but because it's a nice day and a clear day, you might be able to see the view without going through the telescopic view point and see right through the vista to St Paul's Cathedral, which is a good 10 miles away into London. It's a protected view of London up until St Paul's, but then behind that they have opened up to being building behind it. But it's a very special view. We also have Poets' Corner in the far end of the park as you go out, which is also worth looking at. Finally, I would like to thank my children Sarah and Robert for your support today and accepting Chris so wholeheartedly in such a short time, really, in anybody's life. You know, we haven't celebrated our year of meeting each other yet, and yet we stand here today as man and wife. And I think that's absolutely amazing. But I really do think it was time for me, and I think Chris does as well, that it was time for us to move on and live the rest of our lives. And we have made our new life together. Dear Chris, I love you so much, and I feel so proud to be the new Mrs. Peach. And we can continue living our dream together. Thank you.
For those of you who didn't know, Chris explained just now that he and I are first cousins, but really more importantly than that, Chris and I have been friends, dare I say it, best friends for the best part of 60 years. You can see that I'm the younger of the two of us, but we go back a long way. Our friendship really began when Chris and his father John and mother Elizabeth and Catherine used to come down to the seaside town where I grew up for their summer holidays. So that was where things started, but after that we went to the same school, and then after that we went to the same university. So I really can say that I know Chris pretty much as well as anybody. And that ought to be great news from a best man's point of view for the speech, but of course I need to be careful, particularly with this reasonably grown-up group, not to cause any offence and not Chris to breach any confidences. And I was thinking about today and reflecting on the fact that because you haven't even yet made quite, but you will do your first year, that there are quite a lot of people from Pip's side who don't yet fully know Chris and vice versa. And actually even from your own side, Chris, quite a lot of your friends here today are from your Coventry life, and relatively few from the early parts of your life. So I thought I would give everybody a quick illustrated tour of the first half of Chris's life so far, which is basically years 0 to 32 and a half, because you're about to be 65 next week. Happy birthday in advance. Chris is very modest about everything, but particularly about his academic skills. His family will be able to tell you that Chris is something of a boff. He's a member of Mensa, has got to the finals of the Times crossword competition several times. But where did his academic life begin? It began there. I think the school's called Westwood Heath, is that right, Chris? Westwood House. And what do you think, Catherine? How old would he have been? 5 or 6 in that photograph? I don't know about the knees, Chris. I haven't seen those knees for about 50 years. Pip, have you seen them recently? Are they a little bit less knobbly than that? Anyway, that's where it started. Things moved on. I talked about the seaside town Budley where I grew up, and that's where Chris and I spent time together. So here are the two of us, and I don't know what we were then, 10 or 11, and it all looks very sort of innocent and carefree in a Swallows and Amazons kind of way, and actually I think it probably was. We used, for the older members of the group here, we used to put a bottle of Corona. Does anybody remember Corona? The cherryade flavour, and a box of things called Chipples in our bicycle saddlebags, and we'd spend the day scrambling around the cliffs doing stunts on our bikes, which wasn't so brilliant because bikes in those days weren't designed for stunts, so we got a bit of aggro when we got home in the evenings. But that, as I say, was where the friendship really started. But the innocence didn't last. Things moved on, and this is Chris in his hunter-gatherer phase. I'm not quite sure, Chris, with this, whether you... it is a pike, isn't it? Did you catch the pike and shoot a rabbit that's not in the photograph, or did you shoot the pike? All right. I thought I was probably joking, so I'm a bit disappointed to discover I'm not. Anyway, at this stage, I'm not quite sure how old you are, Chris was heading towards university, study engineering at Cambridge, and engineering, for those of you who know Chris, is a big part of his life. And his first sort of female friend was this car that he built himself, known as Polly. You may say, looking at it, that Chris had cause to be modest about his engineering skills. That's Chris's mother, Elizabeth, looking anxiously to see which part of Polly has just fallen off in the drive when it's made an outing. But in fairness to Chris, Polly wasn't a great looker, but she was a nice little runner, so much so, in fact, that Chris and I entered something called the Beaujolais Run, which used to happen, which was a race to bring the first bottle of Primeur back to the UK by the shortest route. And believe it or not, we won it in Polly. We did have to stop at 5 a.m. and knock on a baker's door and borrow his electricity supply so Chris could weld Polly's chassis back together. But in any event, we made it. This one's a little bit out of sequence, as you can see, but it was just to show another of Chris's accomplishments. Planes, trains and automobiles. With the planes, Chris qualified as a pilot, I think even before you qualified for your driving test, and you said at the age of 17, and Chris was a very enthusiastic and active member of the University Air Squadron, so I put that in for nostalgia's sake. And this, sadly, I think John has now gone, but it's a shame, because I wanted to put this in really for a couple of reasons. One, out of respect to my Uncle John, but you've already heard a little bit about that. Not just about his Olympic medal, but this, in fact, was when he was being given his CBE at Buckingham Palace. And I'm not quite sure whether this is true, Catherine, but I do remember being told that by now Chris was working for Dunlop, the big engineering firm, the big industrial firm, as an engineer, and Elizabeth had bought this brand new suit. Last time I'd seen Chris until today wearing a suit pretty much, I think. And just when he was setting off for Buckingham Palace, the factory rang, said the machine was broken down. Chris went in, got down on the floor without his overalls on, and when he arrived, Aunt Elizabeth spent the first half an hour removing great globs of extruded rubber from the suit before he was able to join the royal party. It was Dunlop that took Chris up to Wrexham, and that, of course, is where he and Anne met. And I thought this was a rather lovely photo to put in because it did become, in one sense, something of a crowded marriage, and actually it was Bundle, the old English sheepdog, who was the cause of the crowding. Bundle belonged to Chris, and I'm not quite sure of the exact way it worked, Chris, but in any event, Anne either offered or was asked to do some dog sitting. As you've said in the past, you ended up marrying the kennel maid, and you and Anne obviously had 30 very happy years together, nearly, and we are all very pleased to be able to remember Anne here today. Now, I'm not a golfer, but I know quite a lot of you are, and I can kind of understand. Golf, of course, was a thing really that Anne and Chris played a lot of golf. They were both captains of their respective clubs. It may be a tradition, Chris, that the men's captain wears his pants outside his trousers. I don't think he should wear them 3/4 of the way up his chest, but if that's what you do, we'll leave it up to you. And of course, in addition to the golf, you've got that other eccentricity which you talked about before, and I think we've got the other, what do you call yourselves? Not fun riders, roller coasters, that Lance and Clive and you still like to go off and enjoy these trips. That one's in the States. Do you remember which one it is? Or yeah. So I don't know whether you're planning to carry on with this eccentricity, Chris, but I'll look forward to finding out more. Most importantly, though, in terms of where we are today, golf having been the theme that was mentioned already, as you were saying, Chris, it was golf that brought you, the two of you, together. And I know, Pip, that we can say, I can say on behalf of absolutely everybody in the room, that we're absolutely thrilled for both of you. Thanks to you, the two of you and all of us have been brought here together today, so that really is wonderful. And I was also just thinking, in terms of the lovely invitation that you sent us, that it was particularly nice to read the words that you both put in the invitation, which was that at our time of life we are very grateful to have been given a second chance of happiness, which really seemed to me to say it all. So just before we go downstairs, yet one more toast, please, to Chris and Pip. Chris and Pip. Okay.